the Chinese, if they would slam the fist and say that enough, this war is hurtful to China, would the Russians listen? It's not certain. The Russians, they still have this arrogance and pride, believing that they are a superpower, even though it's obvious that they are not. But it is heavily ingrained in Russian mentality. So it's not certain that they would listen to Russia. But with the economic hardships they are facing, if the Chinese would threaten with joining Western sanctions or anything similar, holding back oil purchases from Russia or any other natural resource, or whatever help that is being sent to Russia from China, who knows? Maybe it could be a way to end this war. But for that to happen, it would also be good to put as much pressure as possible on China by the West. So it's a very
complicated pitch because
yes.
Taiwan, the Chinese get very excited about Taiwan, and they've been quite open about saying there may be some military takeover of Taiwan, not easily achieved.
Yes, they have stated that they haven't ruled it out, taking Taiwan back by force. At the same time, they know that they aren't strong enough to do it just yet. Crossing the Taiwanese Strait is a difficult mission, especially with the Chinese Navy growing naturally every year. They do produce a lot of tonnage, new tonnage in ships. But facing off with the U.S., the Chinese, they don't really have much experience of naval warfare. The Chinese have traditionally been a land empire, and we also discussed this in one of the previous episodes, that naval warfare, especially including aircraft carrier strike groups, is very difficult, and you don't have an admiral in the Chinese army that has any idea.
No, they can build the ships, they can put planes on them, but actually turning that into a truly effective fighting force is quite difficult.
Absolutely, and the American Navy really stands on the experiences, the knowledge that they gained back in 1944 and 1945.
And when you think, even today, when one thinks of the American Navy, I always in my mind picture aircraft carriers. That's how you see the American Navy. I don't think, although they're very important, so much of the other ships. It's always your impression is of the aircraft carriers.
Those are the big guns that really decide naval warfare. It's one thing if you're fighting a war that is literal, that is along the coast somewhere, but if you want to do what they call blue Navy operations, so far away from shore, then it really is the aircraft carrier strike groups, because the aircraft carrier itself is not enough. It needs these additional supporting ships.
Yes, and exactly as you say, without much experience of this, it's going to be much harder. It would be much harder for the Chinese, and also the geography of Taiwan makes an assault quite difficult. Not impossible, just difficult. There are only a few beaches which are suitable for landing.
That western coast of Taiwan is very rugged terrain. There is a mountain range that stretches more or less along the entire western coast. So a lucky geographical feature for the Taiwanese. Naturally, what the Chinese do have is that they have mass, simply. They could technically send not just normal ships, but the Chinese, they also have what they call the fishing navy. All of these small fishing vessels that are being used by the Chinese Navy to pass on intelligence, to find out what capabilities the Americans have in the area. And just as with Dunkirk, when any type of ship was used to ferry these British soldiers back from the continent to the UK, in the same way the Chinese could launched this fleet of simply putting 20, 25, 30, 40 Chinese infantrymen on these shipping vessels and just try to cross in as large numbers as possible, and counting on taking enormous losses as they attempt this crossing, but at the same time counting on the fact that tens of thousands or even more would be able to land on the beaches. Yeah, with Taiwan, it's a complicated issue, and this is partly also why the Americans are a little bit restrained when it comes to sending too much military aid to Ukraine, because they are running quite low on stock. So it would be a good moment for the Chinese to start something when the Americans are low on ammunition and various types of weapon systems. So who knows? It could be a Chinese play that it turns out that sure, Russia launched the invasion on their own initiative, but that the Chinese decide to enter into the scene 2 or 3 years into such a war. It is a quite good strategy to skip out the first part of a large war. We saw it being done by the Americans, who joined the First World War in the 1917, so just one year before the war ended, and also entering into the Second World War in 1941, not in 1939, and they didn't really land anywhere until much later. Of course, there were some fighting in Asia in 1942 with the Battle of Guadalcanal and so on, but these were still mainly Navy operations and some island hopping. But these larger battles, even in Asia with Okinawa, for example, these were battles that took place very late on in the war, and naturally D-Day in Europe didn't come until the summer of 1944.
Exactly, very late.
Very late, so it's a good strategy to save on your resources, and who knows, maybe the Chinese have been playing a long game. And
maybe, well,
yeah.
Of course. We don't know, but certainly we can safely say it isn't the end of history, although it happens to be the end of this particular programme. So as usual, Adam, thank you very much for a very, very interesting canter through the course of history, drawing on parallels from before, but actually looking where we might go, almost looking into the future. There we are, the programme's ended. Unfortunately, the clock has defeated us, but thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have, and we look forward to seeing you next time on Poland Daily History.